Many new researchers treat the academic literature like a map, scanning it exclusively to find an empty coordinate. They locate a subject that has not been studied, plant a flag, and call it a research problem. This is the gap fallacy. An absence of prior research is an observation, not an argument. A topic might be entirely unstudied simply because it yields no useful insights. Pointing out that no one has researched it tells us nothing about why we should. A valid research problem is an active attack. It proves exactly what is structurally flawed or logically incomplete about the current state of knowledge, and demonstrates why that flaw damages our broader understanding. To get there, you don't brainstorm, you engineer. We call this process the unbroken chain, a 5-step pipeline that takes a pile of literature summaries and derives defensible research questions. Every question follows logically from the specific weaknesses exposed in the existing literature. Literature does not organize itself. You must impose a structure. In this pipeline, every body of research fits one of 3 shapes. The first is synthesized coherence. This occurs when completely separate streams of academic thought bear on a single, unrecognized problem. Take the work of researcher Daniel Ondo-Bissiu. He recognized that existing literature on platforms, co-creation, and agriculture operated in silos. They needed mapping together. The second shape is progressive coherence. Here, a field advances in a straight, predictable line, accumulating consensus. Researcher Joseph Ofosu-Nukrom encountered this when reviewing artificial intelligence in medical education. He found wave upon wave of nearly identical perception surveys, all building steadily. The third shape is non-coherence. This describes an active, well-funded field that is actively contradicting itself. Lorene Adjei mapped a literature fighting an internal war over AI in healthcare. Some studies proved AI decision support increases clinical trust, while others proved it destroys professional judgment. Correctly identifying which of these 3 structures you are facing is mandatory. The literature's shape dictates the exact conceptual weapon you will use to break it open. We call that attack problematizing. It means actively challenging the foundational assumptions of the literature, based entirely on the structure you just identified. If your literature has synthesized coherence, your attack is incompleteness. You argue that the existing models are factually correct, but they do not go far enough. Ondo-Bissiu applies this exact strike. He argues that trying to explain an agri-food ecosystem using only platform theory, or only agricultural theory, leaves the model incomplete. It fails without joining the disparate parts. If your literature shows progressive coherence, you must deploy inadequacy. You argue that the field's entire analytical lens is insufficient for the phenomenon at hand. Emmanuel Amoah and Ofosu-Nukrom both faced progressive literatures obsessed with predicting clinical outcomes using machine learning, yet completely devoid of explanatory theory. Their inadequacy attack is precise. They expose the field's flawed assumption that predictive accuracy is the same thing as understanding. A model that forecasts the result perfectly still cannot explain why the result happens. For non-coherence, the weapon is incommensurability. You expose competing positions that cannot logically coexist. Adjei proves her field's contradiction, that AI both builds and erodes trust, stems from a false assumption. The literature assumes a single research method can accurately capture trust for both patients and doctors at the same time. True problematization strikes at a load-bearing conceptual flaw in the literature's foundation, going beyond the simple identification of missing data. Once the attack lands, you classify the resulting gap using a strict taxonomy. A gap can be categorized as an issue, theoretical, methodological, contextual, or level of analysis gap. The most robust research problems combine 2 or more of these. Amoah, for instance, identified a combined theoretical and methodological gap. His field's lack of explanatory theory is bound to its reliance on predictive machine learning methods. Categorizing the gap defines the scope of the contribution you can reasonably claim. A common error when studying fresh trends is claiming you will generate a grand new theory from scratch. The literature rarely supports that level of invention. Instead, the rigorously correct contribution is very often theory elaboration. This means taking an existing, proven theory and improving it by testing it against new mechanisms or contexts. Alternatively, you might claim framework building, synthesizing existing models into a new operational framework, exactly as Ando Bishu did. By claiming a structured, honest contribution, you protect your credibility. You commit to a defensible thesis rather than an impossible leap of logic. We reach the final stage of the pipeline. At this point, the structure of the pipeline dictates the remaining steps, ensuring every choice remains tethered to the original problem. Your purpose statement is a direct, one-sentence translation of the specific contribution you just committed to. Your objectives act as the mechanical breakdown of that single purpose statement into executable steps, and your research questions are the final translation of those objectives strictly into measurable queries for your data. This is the unbroken chain in practice. A peer reviewer must be able to trace your third research question directly back to your second objective. That second objective routes cleanly back to your stated purpose, which routes backward to your identified gap of inadequacy. A perfectly derived research question cannot float free. It is tethered like a steel cable to the foundation of the literature. Look at the completed conceptual pipeline. It replaces the aimless void of the gap fallacy with a highly structured architecture. Valid research questions are engineered mechanisms. They are not imagined ideas. You structure the coherence. You strike with a problematizing move. You classify the gap. You promise the exact contribution, and you extract the questions. An amateur reads a stack of papers, hoping to find a blank space to fill. A professional reads to find the structural weakness. Instead, we study the existing architecture, expose its hidden flaws, and build the new theory required to fix it. Mastering this chain of logic is the definitive line separating passive commentary from actual scholarship.